Welcome back to the Law School Toolbox podcast. Today we're talking about what to wear and possibly what not to wear in law school and at law school related events. Your Law School Toolbox hosts are Alison Monahan and Lee Burgess. That's me. We're here to demystify the law school and early legal career experience so you'll be the best law student and lawyer you can be. We're the co-creators of the Law School Toolbox, the Bar Exam Toolbox, and the career-related website Career Dicta. Alison also runs the Girls Guide to Law School. If you enjoy the show, please leave a review or rating on your favorite listening app. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to us. You can reach us via the contact form on lawschooltoolbox.com, and we'd love to hear from you. And with that, let's get started.
Welcome back to the Law School Toolbox podcast. Today we're talking about fashion, what to wear and maybe what not to wear to law school and other law school events. So first off, does it even matter what we wear?
Well, I'd like to say from like a feminist perspective or like a very kind of open-minded perspective that it doesn't matter. But I think that in a professional environment in law school, in a way, it's a vocational school, it's a professional school, that it can matter how you present yourself, and your dress is part of that. I don't think you need to be obsessed with it, but I think it's something that you should be a little thoughtful about.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like being a lawyer in some sense is playing a role.
Yeah.
So like it or not, you sort of have to conform to the constraints of that role. That's not to say that if you are, very uncomfortable in a certain style of dress that you have to wear that. We're not in England. We don't have to wear robes and wigs. But in some ways, I guess that makes it easier. You just put that on and you're ready to go.
That's true.
But yeah, I think, and we'll talk about this later, having almost a uniform or something that you feel comfortable in, but that also reflects the professional that you're becoming, I think makes sense. It's funny because my downstairs neighbor at one point when I was actually a lawyer, if she saw me leave the house in a certain pair of shoes, she would be like, "You're going to a lawyer event, aren't you? Those are your lawyer shoes." And they really were. It's not something that I probably typically would have worn, down to the cafe. But basically it was like, oh, I need to go dress like a lawyer. Okay, I'm going to put on these patent leather loafers.
Right.
So I think it's a question of finding that balance of, looking sort of the way that you're supposed to look on some level, whether it's as a law student or in a more formal setting, but then also finding something that you personally feel comfortable with that doesn't make you feel too much like you're an imposter here.
Yeah, it's a delicate balance. And I think a lot of people think that their wardrobe, especially on the professional side, has to be very complicated or super expensive and really refined. And I don't think that's the case. You actually just want people maybe not to exactly remember how you were dressed. You just want to, present yourself in a kind of professional way that looks maybe put together, but that's not, your outfit is not, the fashion statement is not really what's important. It's just that you seem appropriately attired for wherever you're going.
Yeah, I think, erring on the side of boring is probably usually the safest bet here.
Yeah.
I remember once I was going to court with a partner actually several partners, it was a pretty big case, and we were having a hearing, and the female partner, who's a total badass, basically wore these really kind of, loud, very expensive shoes. I think, there were the red sole, maybe leopard print or something. Yeah. And the local counsel brought it up later with me and this male partner, and they're like, look, I think this judge is not really that into what she's wearing, and I think this could be a problem. And then it's this awkward situation of like, well, who's going to go and discuss this? And of course, the male partner was like, I'm going to talk to her. I'm like, I don't think this is a good idea. I think this is a really terrible idea. Like, let me talk to her. Much better coming from another woman. Of course, he wouldn't listen. It was a total disaster. Point being, these questions don't dissolve when you get out of law school. You're always going to have to be calibrating your personal style against the expectations of what may be a very conservative judge in a conservative area of the country who just really wants to see, something pretty boring.
Yeah, I think that's true. And even juries, I know jury consultants often talk about how lawyers present themselves, and even extreme situations. I think I was watching the O.J. Simpson miniseries last year when it came out, when they were talking about, why am I blanking on the woman who was the lead DA in that? Marsha
I know who you're talking about. Yes.
That they had like an image consultant come in and tell her that she needed to straighten her hair, she needed to do all of these things. And, it's like you get so torn if you're like, I can't believe somebody came in and told a woman that she needed to straighten her hair for court or dress a certain way. But on the other hand, I think we do live in a society where judgments can be made based on what you're wearing, and you don't want that to be a function of your practice or like have a negative outcome for your client. So it can be challenging, I think, to balance your personal feelings about fashion or how you should present yourself and kind of what's required by the profession.
Yeah, and in this particular case, it was doubly ridiculous because the instructions had gone out to everyone basically like, nothing flashy, just keep it conservative, whatever. So the male partner, who was the one who was like, oh, I'm going to go talk to her, he was wearing this enormous, expensive Rolodex and super flashy cufflinks and like 7 other things that were also really flashy. And no one said anything.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, really? Double standard much?
Yeah.
like
the Louboutins are really what's going to be the distracting part of this?
Yeah. I was like, okay, this might have been a little over the top, but look in the mirror. Come on.
Yeah.
So it's not fair. Let's just put that out there.
I think
but
that's
it
true.
is what it is.
It is what it is. So let's talk through some kind of different law school situations, and then we're going to get into kind of different suggestions about how to think about fashion in your wardrobe. But let's start with class. Like, Alison, do you think it really matters what you wear to class?
Well, I don't think most people particularly care unless what you're wearing is in some way distracting. I mean, I think I remember I went to school at Columbia in the law school. People, dress like normal people, but the undergrads tended to roll out of bed and basically go to class in their pajamas. And this is in the middle of New York City, and you've got people walking around several blocks to their dorm in their, like, literally their pajamas, like obviously their pajamas. And that was one of those things where you're like, okay, I think you probably could have thrown on like a coat at least or something, like this is not a great look for anything. And so I don't think it's really safe to be walking down the street in your pajamas. It's winter,
right?
It's cold. So I mean, I think here, you just want to sort of avoid distractions. I don't think anyone really cares that much. I mean, certainly you don't have to dress up for class if that's something you're concerned about. You don't need, a fancy wardrobe. You don't really have to put on makeup, Some of this is also regional. I mean, I think if you're in the South, people have different expectations. I grew up in the South. I went to college in North Carolina, with people who, a lot of them would not think of leaving their dorm or their sorority house without full makeup.
Right.
Was that necessary? No. But a lot of people did it. So I think, you can kind of wear whatever you want as long as whatever you're wearing is not hugely distracting.
I think that that's just kind of the rule of thumb. I think most people in my law school, I went to law school in San Francisco, so it's cold most of the time. So there were a huge number of us who was just like jeans and a zip-up fleece, like jeans, because that's like what you wear in San Francisco.
Where's your hoodie?
Right, exactly. That's what everybody wears. But I do remember there would be times when it was hot where, people would come into class and there could be a woman wearing something that was like almost see-through or something where you're like, okay, like I remember that, I have a memory of that.
I honestly can't say, I'm trying to think. I don't think I remember like any single outfit that anyone ever wore to class in law school.
Yeah.
Ever.
No.
I mean, I think New York's only really hot in the summer. New York dressing professionally in the summer is an absolute nightmare, particularly if you're commuting. So, I was commuting downtown to my office. And that, like figuring out how to manage an incredibly crowded, incredibly hot subway and then look presentable when you get to the office and then it's probably freezing.
Yeah.
That's a whole other podcast right there. But for class, I don't remember a single thing anyone ever wore. No,
I mean, it's really just one of those things where you just want to be comfortable and appropriate for whatever's going on, at that day. I think it's not something to worry about. I think if you're meeting, the other things to think about is if you are meeting with professors or administrators or even career services, you might want to consider the nature of the meeting. And if it is a meeting where you might be, let's say, discussing whether or not to be a TA with a professor, or you're meeting with career services to talk about career prospects, or you are going to meet with the deans because you've got a concern about school, it may not hurt to, be a little more on the business casual side of things, especially if they are more senior folks. Oftentimes, if they're a little more old school, they might have some old school philosophies on how students should dress, and that might make it easier for them to take you seriously. Again, it's not like that it's the right response, but it's a realistic response by a lot of people.
Yeah, I think it's valuable just to have certain outfits that you can wear, or certain pieces that you can wear. I mean, it's easier if you're a guy, just throw on a jacket and you probably look okay. A woman, you can do like a sweater set, or, something that makes it look like you gave a little bit of effort.
Right.
And I'm remembering now when the senator brought her baby to the floor of the Senate.
Oh, that's right.
Requirement that women wear jackets.
Yeah.
And she brought her several week old baby to the Senate floor in a cute little sweater set.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. I don't know. It's ridiculous, really, how worked up people get about these things.
But some people notice, and that little bit of extra kind of effort, I think, can oftentimes just makes you look more professional. I think the more professional the conversation is that you're going to have with somebody, the more dressed up you want to be, because it again goes to this idea of you're playing a role. And if you look like you're ready to play the role, it's easier for folks to accept you as a member of that role.
And I think too, it can give you a different level of confidence. Knowing like, okay, I look the part.
Right.
It just makes you be like, okay, I belong here. I look the part. You're going to have to take me seriously. Done.
Yeah. I think networking events, you might need to ask around about the formality, because different metropolitan areas, different areas of the law, whether the networking event is at a law firm, whether it's at a government office, all these different kind of workspaces or even areas of the country have different standards for what their norms are. If you're back east in New York, things are typically going to be a bit more formal than if you're in San Francisco or Silicon Valley. That's just the reality. I remember
for sure,
when I was a summer associate, we would do these video conferences with other summer associates around the country, and you could almost see the frustration and anger that the East Coast, like New England offices would have when they would like show the San Francisco office, and the men were in like polo shirts or just like button-up dress shirts, and the women, we were in like maybe blouses. Nobody had a jacket on, nobody had a tie on, and you could tell they were just like, because that was the norm in the California offices.
No, the firm that my law school roommate worked in after our first year was suits every day, full suit every day in New York.
That's a lot.
I mean, that's a little extreme, but that was just what they had to do.
Yeah.
In the middle of the summer. I mean, God, can you imagine? What a nightmare. Full suit, New York City, like 100 degrees and humid.
Sounds awful. I worked in Sacramento before law school, and one of my jobs is I did lobbying, political PR and lobbying. And I had a lot of friends who worked at the Capitol. And at the Capitol, you had to dress up, basically in suits, if you worked at the Capitol every day. I worked across the street from the Capitol in a PR office. So I did not have to wear suits every day. And we would like have lunch, and they were like, we were on the same conference call meeting. I was like, yeah, but I don't work at the Capitol. So I was in, like a sundress and a jean jacket because that was totally appropriate. I did all of my work over the phone. But I do think it's even interesting when, you can even be physically next to each other, but even doing similar work, but the norms of the individual offices can be so different.
Yeah, and I think that's the key, is you want to try to understand before you put yourself in a scenario, what are the expectations here? And sometimes people will just say, I mean, I was actually going to kind of a networking party recently, and I had my whole outfit literally planned and on, and I was walking out the door, and then I looked at the invite, and then I saw the dress code was way more formal than I was dressed for. And I was like, oh, good thing I noticed that before leaving the house.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, you want to hit the right points. I mean, for example, when we used to go and pitch business in Silicon Valley, it was explicit that no one was to wear a suit because that's not the culture. Like, you don't want to be one of the suits,
right,
if you're going to a Silicon Valley tech company. But, you know, other places you do. Obviously, if you're going to court or something, you're going to need to wear a suit. And, you know, I think the networking, you just kind of want to try to figure out in advance. And some of this can be like, well, where is it taking place? You know, if it's taking place at a very posh, you know, whatever, I don't know, club or something in New York City, like the Yale Club or the Harvard Club, you know, that's probably a signal that, okay, this is probably going to be a pretty stuffy event.
Yeah, and some places like the Yale Club and the Harvard Club have dress codes published like on their website. Like, you're not supposed to. I was at an event at the Harvard Club a few months ago, and like, men have to wear ties. You know, it's like they have very strict dress codes, even if you're not in like the main dining room, just to even like enter the building. I don't think they'll kick you out necessarily.
I think they have them. They'll make you put one on.
Yeah, but
they'll basically store jackets and ties. And if you're not appropriately attired, I mean, I've actually gone to one of these clubs for a summer lunch or something, and one guy like didn't follow directions and didn't have a tie, and they made him put like a bow tie on.
Yeah, you don't want to be that guy. You know?
Yeah, you don't want to be the clip-on bow tie guy.
Right, exactly. Everyone knows that that's a clip-on bow tie.
Yeah, they do it on purpose, I think, you know.
Yeah. I think if it's a school-sponsored networking event, if you're really lost and you can't figure out what the dress code is, I think asking career services makes a lot of sense. They should be able to guide you, you know, with what is appropriate based on where the event is or things like that.
Yeah, and I mean, that's information ideally they would just be providing as a matter of course, so that you're not wondering. And it's something you could bring up, you know, maybe as a group of people, like, hey, when you send out these invitations, it would be really great to know what we're supposed to, like, what the dress code is so we can plan for it.
Yeah, I think that's really true. Well, let's move on to interviews and OCI. So
this one's easy.
Yeah, you wear a suit. Always.
You wear a suit.
Always wear a suit. Yeah.
I mean, even if you're interviewing, for example, the firm that I worked at in California was very informal, like aggressively informal. And if you wore anything other than jeans to work, people were probably going to think you were looking for another job. But even then, I think it was appropriate to interview in a suit.
Yes. I think if you are interviewing somewhere where, let's say you're doing the on-site interview and you know that it's a more casual environment, you can always show up in the suit, but make sure you wear something like, if you're a woman, like an appropriate blouse underneath it, or a man, an appropriate dress shirt. And you know that you could lose the jacket if it feels appropriate. But very seldom will people look down on you because you have overdressed for an interview, I think.
No one's going to.
No.
I mean, I don't care what they tell you. I would almost always err on the side of wearing a suit.
Yeah. I don't necessarily think it always has to be like a black suit or a navy suit. I think I can be gray. It could be pinstripe. Like, again, nothing super wild, but you do want it to be, you know, clean and professional, and remember the role that you're interviewing for, and they want to see you in that role. I mean, you're kind of dressing up in costume to show them like what you would look like if you were going to a client meeting, what you would look like if they were sending you to court.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I think this one's easy. Just wear a suit.
Yeah.
Frankly, I don't really care if it's a skirt suit or a pantsuit. I mean, there are other people that maybe have opinions about that. I feel like when you start going down that path, it's just like, you know what? If somebody insists that you wear a skirt suit, some old partner, and you really don't want to do it, and they don't give you an offer because you didn't do it, I would just be like, whatever. You know, like, this is not the right fit for me.
Right.
So I think you have, you know, you can have your own spin on this, but basically if you put on a dark colored suit and a blouse or some other type of shirt, I know, Lee, you didn't really like wearing like button-up shirts.
I didn't.
But you're going to be fine. You know, conservative shoes, conservative bag, no flashy jewelry.
Right.
You know, this is actually like probably the easier part.
Yeah, I think that's true. And I think for women, I don't think you have to wear a button-up blouse, especially if your body type doesn't lend that to being like comfortable or looking very tailored. But you should kind of explore some different options to make sure that whatever you do end up putting together looks really good with your suit. So like, I'm a big fan of shells underneath jackets, but they're not really necessarily appropriate because most of them are sleeveless to take off if you are at an interview. You know, you mostly only would wear that if you were keeping the jacket on. So you might need to have another alternative if you're going to be somewhere where you think you might want to take your jacket off. But, depending on your body type, different things are going to look good. And I think you should find something that, is appropriate and looks good on your body type that you feel comfortable with. And you're not going to be constantly like checking to make sure buttons aren't pulling or various other things, because that is just going to distract you and be frustrating. So even though I think sometimes career service is like, you must wear this, same button up dress shirt under your suit, it's like, well, that's great for some people, but maybe that's not going to be great for everybody. And if you look uncomfortable or you look sloppy because that doesn't work on your body type, then that's not going to help you in your presentation.
Yeah, you've got to find something that fits. I mean, number one, you don't want the buttons. That's the problem with the button down. The button's puckering and they're always at like weird places. One place I will put a plug in if you want to try on some really nice, very well tailored and actually fitted for like a lot of women's bodies is Thomas Pink, which they're expensive, but you don't need many of them. And if you take care of it, it will last. And they actually tailor for like boobs. So,
nice.
Unlike a lot of other places. So, I think going and trying on a bunch of stuff. But if you come to the point where you're just like, this is not a look that works for me, then find something else that you feel comfortable in.
Yeah. You can also, if you really are not sure how to dress yourself in these professional clothes, if you've never worn suits and stuff before, it's a great time to like go to Nordstrom and make an appointment and have someone shop with you to like help you understand.
All different kinds of stores.
Yeah, all different kinds of stores.
I would say almost any place that you might go look for a suit probably has at least like pretty trained salespeople. I mean, whether it's, everything from Banana Republic to Ann Taylor.
Yeah.
To more specialized places like Brooks Brothers or Thomas Pink or the big department stores. There's going to be somebody who actually is really into doing this.
Yeah.
And they would be happy to help you put something together.
Yeah. And they can actually even show you like, if we tailor it this way, it solves that problem. Like, and then most of us are like tailoring, but I think it can really make
but like adjusting
difference.
A button or something can make a huge difference.
Yeah, it really can. And a lot of places are equipped to do that. I think now I almost wish that like Rent the Runway and places like that would do professional clothes for law students in a lot of ways. But, I think that for now, just trying to figure out how to invest in a couple professional outfits that can be mixed and matched up a little bit makes the most sense. Maybe someday.
Yeah. Well, and if you're traveling, oftentimes you can actually get things tailored, particularly if you're in like Southeast Asia or something.
Yes.
If you're in Vietnam, Hong Kong, places like that, they can do amazing work with really high quality fabric for a lot less money than you're going to pay at sort of a mid-range suit in the US.
Yeah, that's a good point. All right. One thing that I would like to call out, and Alison, I don't think you and I have talked about this, is an event like graduation. Which I think is kind of interesting because on one hand, it's your celebration and you should be able to wear whatever you want. But at times I have seen, especially some women, be dressed for graduation in something that I would not want to be presenting myself to like the dean of my law school in. Say like something where my midriff was showing or or like it would just be like maybe something I would wear to a party or a club or a wedding, not like, a formal event. So I don't know. Do you think you have to think about that kind of stuff, or am I just making myself sound old and conservative?
You're just such a fuddy-duddy.
I am a fuddy-duddy. Not really. But
as I recall, we had pretty specific instructions about what we could and couldn't wear.
Oh, really?
And it was all under the robe anyway.
Right.
So honestly, I don't think anyone even had, I have no clue what I wore. I think basically I had to wear a dress or something. And it was also like 1,000 degrees and about to rain. So the whole thing, I just remember being like, okay, this is miserable. Can we get this over with? But, then you take off the robe and you're running around. So, yeah, I think you just want to think about it. If you're going to have a graduation event, say a party or something like that, that's, wear whatever you want.
Wear whatever you want. Yeah.
If you're going, I think we had graduation and then I think there was a reception of different sorts, of various different organizations and things had receptions that professors were at and deans were at. And yeah, there I think you do want to think, is this the last impression I want them to have of me is in like, some outfit that I would wear out clubbing? Probably not. So yeah, I think it's at least worth thinking about.
Yeah. I mean, again, this is not going to make or break your legal career, but, you're still at a professional event. Your graduation is still a professional event. Your party and whatever you do outside is not.
Yeah,
but
you don't want guys showing up in like cargo shorts and things like that.
Right. Yeah, exactly. All right. So one thing that I always share whenever I talk about what to wear for women is advice given to me by one of my favorite mentors in undergrad about whether or not women have to wear jackets to things. And her rule of thumb, which I still think I've seen proven true over and over and over again, is if a man is wearing a jacket, it is likely that you need to be, as a woman, in a jacket as well. And that sweater sets are not jackets and, are not seen as such. And although I think that maybe in some situations this kind of rule of thumb can get somewhat more laxed, I do have to say that every time I've shown up into an event with a jacket on, I have been glad that I've had the jacket on, even if some of my friends didn't show up with the jacket on, because I feel like it increases like the gender differences if the men all show up in a version of a suit and you don't. Like, I don't know.
Right, you're wearing like a sleeveless dress or something,
right,
which is totally fine.
Yeah,
and if you put a jacket over it, you're going to look pretty professional. Yeah, I mean, I think in general, you just want to probably err on the side of being a little bit more formal than maybe you would like to be. I think it just, like it or not, it goes to credibility. It makes you look like you fit in, and it decreases the distinctions between men and women, which is probably better in a professional setting.
Yeah, I think it is. And I think it used to be the concern was if you didn't show up in a suit, they wouldn't take you seriously as being in whatever role the suit required, or at least the jacket required. But I don't know that that's the same necessarily. But don't always key off of what like the highest level woman in the group is doing. Because I've oftentimes been to events or panels where possibly the women who are speaking on the panel are not dressed in jackets. Sometimes that happens. But if you're new to the profession, you should be. Because they've earned that right.
Issues about if you look younger than you are, or if you're perceived as being someone who's very young, that's again one of the situations, like, it's not really fair. And this happens for both men and women. Like, I was at a trial where one of he was actually a partner, but he was Asian and he looked quite young. Which normally is like, great, you look much younger than your age.
Right.
But we did these mock jury trials and they were like, I don't know who this kid is. Like, why should I believe anything he's asking about? And he was really upset about it. But people were like, look, there's nothing you can do about this. Like, that is the perception. And, give it 10 years, you'll probably be wishing you looked younger.
Right.
But I think particularly for students, there are things you can do because he was already in a suit. It wasn't like he wasn't already playing up his professional standing. But if you're not, you might just want to go a little bit more formal than someone who's 10 years older than you, who's probably going to be taken more seriously inherently.
Right. And the example you used even of the partner in her leopard print Louboutins.
I still laugh about that.
It's a lot different when a partner makes that fashion decision than if an associate did.
Sure.
She has earned the right to make her own fashion choices by being an accomplished partner. But, an associate shouldn't show up to the trial in anything that would be considered questionable, because your job is not to be noticed.
You want to fade into the background. And if that means that you buy some really boring, like, thick-heeled shoes, that's what you wear. It's like, I would never wear these anywhere else but court. But okay, they're my court shoes.
Yeah. So, I think that's, you also have to remember where you are in the hierarchy to how you can stretch the norms.
Yeah, well, on that point about having a court wardrobe, I think in some ways simplifying your wardrobe. So if you're listening to this, you're like, oh my gosh, I've got to have like 1,000 different things to wear to every single event. No, you can actually streamline and simplify your wardrobe, which can make you more productive and can be a lot cheaper in the end.
Yeah, when I was putting together kind of what we wanted to talk about for this podcast, I remembered reading articles about Barack Obama like only wearing two kinds of suits or something like that. So I went and looked it up, and it is true. He only wore gray and blue suits, and all of his shirts like went with both, and all of his ties. And so he never had to make decisions about really what he would wear, because whatever he would pull out of the closet would go together. And this is the same idea behind Steve Jobs wearing the same turtlenecks. Well, I guess he probably had more than one, but wearing the black turtleneck.
Well, it's like my closet. I have, I think, 8 of the same shirt.
Yeah. And so other folks, Zuckerberg wears the same type of t-shirt all the time, and it's kind of known for that. But a lot of people argue that simplifying your wardrobe in this way can make you more productive because it cuts down on the number of decisions that you make every day. And if you're trying to streamline your life, decision fatigue is a major issue for most people. And so just removing a certain number of decisions can be really powerful. And I even found a blog post that I kind of remembered reading a long time ago about a woman who bought 6 of the same black dress and wore it basically every day, unless she was going to a special event or like a special date night or something like that. And she just accessorized it. She had a couple of different belts or necklace, or she wore a sweater over it. And she's like, nobody ever commented. All they would comment on how it was nice I looked. She was like,
I feel like honestly you're better off finding like something, a look that works for you, and just repeating it.
Yeah.
And not having to think about it.
Yeah.
I mean, really, do you want to be thinking about what to wear to class every morning in law school, or do you just want to get up, pull things out of the closet, know you look okay, and walk out the door?
Yeah. And, you know, when I got pregnant for the first time, I kind of learned this lesson of like, what do you do when you only have so many clothes you can wear? Because you quickly realize you only have like a few outfits or a few dresses or a few things. And that it was actually very simple. It's like you go in and you're like, how cold is it today? Okay, I'll wear that.
Do I need a sweater?
Do I need a sweater? It's like I have like 4 maternity tank tops. Which one of those do I want to wear today? Which one of the pair of pants do I own? You know, it was kind of freeing. And going back to my normal wardrobe after I'd had my son, I got pretty overwhelmed. And at various times have kind of gone through and done clean outs. But I think, you know, I always continue to kind of do these clean outs with this idea of getting to what a lot of people call more of a capsule wardrobe, which is, I think, the technical term for it, where you really only have like I've seen like 37 to 40 to 50 pieces of clothes that
Seems
most
like a ton of clothes.
Which seems like a ton, but apparently, but I guess when you like count like t-shirts and
I guess if you count each of my 8 shirts that are all exactly the same as 8, I don't know.
Right.
I mean, count them as
yeah,
one,
I think that's the idea. It's like you have like 40 pieces, 40 to 50 pieces that all can be somewhat mixed and matched. That you can simplify your life by slightly higher quality pieces because you're not constantly buying clothes, but make it very easy to dress yourself because like everything goes together.
Right. No, I mean, I think it's worth considering. I'm definitely a fan of the all black plus look.
Yeah.
You know, that's pretty much, if you see me wearing something that's not black, it's probably going to be like, wow, what's going on? Did you run out of laundry?
I know. Totally.
And I buy other things. I just never wear them.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, I cannot be bothered.
I know. I do. I also love my black uniform of clothes. I was actually down in San Diego seeing some friends, and one of my friends was like, do you only wear black? And I was like, no, but it's really easy to travel in all black because it's just like, then everything goes together.
Yeah, you never have to think about if it matches.
Yeah,
which I feel like just saves you so much time and energy.
You know, I wore like a black dress. I'd wear a different black dress the next day. But
again, like who cares? I think travel is a great opportunity. I mean, think about if you're traveling with a carry-on, you can live pretty well out of that. You know, it really makes you streamline things. And I mean, obviously, you know, sometimes you're going to need other things like rain boots or something if it suddenly rains. But you know, if you think about what you take when you travel, that's probably a lot of what you would wear just on a day-to-day basis. And you can probably get rid of a lot of other stuff.
Yeah, and I have seen, you know, blogs and articles about efficient packing and how you pick like your color story or whatever for
just go black.
So, like my color story is black or variations of it. But I think it is kind of, it does make sense to show that if you're really thoughtful, you know, and how you can kind of put different pieces together, that it's travel is a great opportunity to kind of test out this, how much stuff do you actually need to dress yourself for a week? You might be surprised. I mean, I remember backpacking through Europe after college, I had like one knee-length black skirt, one black dress, like a couple, different t-shirts, and like 2 long sleeve t-shirts. And I made outfits out of that for like 5 weeks because I didn't want to carry any more than that.
Yeah, and I think you can definitely think about this idea when you're talking about your formal wardrobe. So, you don't need a closet full of suits. You need 1 or 2 nice suits. And then if you're, a woman, you might consider skirt suit, pantsuit, that can mix it up, a few different shirts, maybe a few different accessories, although even there, I think you can definitely wear the same ones, probably can just wear the same pair of shoes. Nobody's going to notice if you wear the same shoes or even the same outfit to your callbacks that you wore on campus because you're not going to talk to the same people. And I guarantee you the HR person either doesn't notice or doesn't care.
Right.
Everybody understands you're in law school. Like you're not expected to have a top of the line suit and a different one for every occasion. You just need something that looks appropriate.
Yeah. I think that's really true. And when it comes time to buy suits, I think you can be a little smart about it to look at a variety of options. So even stores now like H&M, Nordstrom Rack, The Limited, they all have suits, Banana Republic. So you can definitely explore a lot of different price points to look for suits. I think the other thing you can do when you know that you're either going into law school or you are going in an interview season is look for those half yearly sales that will come up, or stores will offer discounts, or friends and family. If you are a bit strategic and you don't make it a fire drill, so you're looking for something at last minute, you could actually manage to save quite a bit of money while you go shopping for these things. Or you wait till a holiday, you ask a family member to pitch in to help you buy a suit for a holiday. My grandmother used to buy me suits. That was like one of the things we used to do because we would go shopping together. But this started back in college, I think, when I needed my first interview suits. And she would take me shopping. I think it was Ann Taylor or Macy's or somewhere. And we would go she would buy me a complete professional outfit. That was kind of one of her things. And that was very kind of her to do because then I had a nice looking interview outfit. So, things like that, you can get a little creative kind of how to put all this stuff together. Like you said, Alison, it's not like you need to be in some Armani suit to get a job. You just need to look clean and professional.
Yeah. And I think this is an area where you also want to think about, how much is it going to cost me to clean this and that kind of thing? Like, is this material going to hold up? I mean, if you buy a suit at H&M, let's face it, you're probably not going to be wearing that for the next 10 years, which may be fine.
Right.
That may be exactly what you need. But if you can find a slightly higher quality on sale or something, that might be a suit. I mean, I bought my first formal work suit outfit interview thing at Ann Taylor.
Yep.
And I think I actually still have the dress part of it.
Yeah.
It was basically indestructible because that was how they made it at that point. I'm not sure they do at this point, but
mine was Ann Taylor too. So
it's just one of those things. You're that was the uniform and it lasted.
Yeah.
But if it's a cheaper fabric that you're going to have to be dry cleaning every single time you wear it, in the end, that may end up costing you more than some place that costs you a little bit more to start with. But maybe you can get a couple of wears out of it before it has to be cleaned or that kind of thing.
Yeah, you also want to look at how the fabric, wrinkles. That's, I think, a big deal too, because if you're going to travel, especially for callbacks, and you have to travel with your suit, you don't want to be paying to have it pressed or steamed and things like that. So, different qualities also will create different headaches. So you want to make sure you
think about also breathability.
Yeah.
If you're going to be, depending on where you're interviewing, if you're a heavy sweater, these are just things to consider. Like buying the least expensive possible option may not end up paying off in the long run.
Yeah. Now to fill in these kind of professional gaps in your wardrobe, I think you can get a little creative and look for other ways to save money. So I know that there's this Land's End dress that's been written about that professional women get pretty obsessed with, called their point dress. And at times it can be as low as like $30 when they're running sales and things like that. And I know a lot of professional women who, it's simple, it's clean, it doesn't wrinkle, and they will just throw a blazer over it and be good to go. And that is, that's a way that you can even, like, you could take a blazer from one suit and throw it over a different kind of a dress, and now you kind of almost have another suit for a woman. I think you can get a little creative and make these, simple options and outfits out of the few pieces that you have without breaking the bank. And that's, again, the argument for maybe you have a little bit of a nicer suit jacket that can be worn with a few different pieces. You might wear it more, but then you're not going to have to buy 3 of them.
Yeah. So I think all these things are trade-offs. But, if you really hate shopping, like me, I usually just, when I needed these things, I would literally just present myself to the first person I encountered at the store and be like, I'm a total disaster. Can you please dress me? And they're like, yes. How much do you want to spend and what do you need it for? I need it for an interview and this is my budget. Okay, great. So that is absolutely an option. I mean, there are more like, modern internet options too. You can try something like Stitch Fix. I think that's how you say it.
Stitch Fix.
Yes. Or an app that I've actually used, which was actually founded or involved with a lawyer that we know, which is Boone and Gable. And they, if you're in San Francisco or maybe some other places, will actually come to your house. Yeah. And basically bring you things to try on, and you never have to go to the store. So that's the
request, like, I'm looking for interview suits, and they will bring you.
Exactly. Or I'm going on vacation or whatever. It's definitely a higher end option, but if you really don't want to go out and go shopping, it can be amazing.
Yeah. So the reality is there's a solution for almost everyone. And even things like Stitch Fix now, I think, has men's clothing as well. So this isn't just about solving.
I think there's some also made to order men's stuff online that's pretty economical that people are into now.
Yeah. With a little creativity, you can solve a lot of these problems. But I think one piece of advice, especially when you're looking for more formal wear, is don't leave it to the last minute.
Oh, God, no.
No, you want to, if you know that you're going to be interviewing over the summer, make sure that at the beginning of the summer, with plenty of notice, you start to try and solve these clothing problems.
I had a nightmare scenario where I applied for 1L jobs in law firms, not really thinking I'd get any interviews. And then there were some who wanted to do interviews, and I didn't really have anything appropriate to wear. And it's Christmas. Ooh. And as I recall, I was in Atlanta, and, I was like, I have to find something. So I went to the mall in Atlanta and, got a personal shopper at Nordstrom's or something. And they're bringing out these, birthday cake pink outfits. And I'm like, okay, I'm interviewing for law firm jobs at large firms in New York City. Do you have anything that is black or gray? And they were basically no. It was a nightmare. It was an absolute nightmare.
Yeah. So leaving it at the last minute, not a good call. And you never want to be in a situation where you get invited to something and you don't have something appropriate to wear. So make sure that you do at least have, a few things in your closet that you can pull out. If you're going to start law school, you want to have a few professional things for these upcoming networking events. If you're going to do any sort of moot court, oral arguments, you have to have a suit. Stuff is going to come up. So just think about it now so you're not, running around at the last minute. Or, if you are a body type, I have friends that are on the shorter side, they have to tailor all of their pants. They just can't buy pants off the rack and wear them. And that takes time. You can't.
All these things take time. I think at a minimum, ideally, you want to go into law school either with or with a solid plan for having at least one interview outfit, which is formal, a suit, and then at least 1 or 2 business casual outfits that you could wear in a fairly formal networking setting.
Yep. All right. Well, with that, we are out of time. And I think it is fitting that I am doing this podcast wearing yoga pants and a tank top. When we talk about suits. I was just thinking about that.
I'm wearing all black plus a hoodie sweater.
Yeah. So it's just, and flip-flops. Which is very kind of fun.
Yeah, I think I have my furry slippers on.
Yeah, which is the benefit of running your business virtually. So we don't have to worry about this. All right, and with that, we're out of time. If you enjoyed this episode of the Law School Toolbox podcast, please take a second to leave a review and rating on your favorite listening app. We'd really appreciate it, and be sure to subscribe so you don't miss anything. If you have any questions or comments, please don't hesitate to reach out to myself or Allison at lee@lawschooltoolbox.com or allison@lawschooltoolbox.com, or you can always contact us via our website contact form at lawschooltoolbox.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk soon.